welcome in, folks. We'll call the May general meeting of the St. John's Neighborhood Association to order at 7:06 p.m. It's great to see everyone here. I think familiar faces, maybe a few new faces, and we've got a packed agenda here, so we'll try to move through it quickly. My name is RJ DeMello. I'm the chair of the St. John's Neighborhood Association. We have Jesse Patrick, Paul Duncan, and Bernadine here in person. We've got board members Kim and Juan on the Zoom as well. And hopefully I'm not missing anybody else. Ryan couldn't be here. It's his anniversary, folks. We'll let it slide. So first thing first, anybody on Zoom, we have live translated captions. So if you or anybody you know where English is their second language, we actually have a package where you can tune in via Zoom and have the caption in the language of your choice there to live appear at the bottom and of the broadcast to make this as accessible as possible. So please let anybody know who that might be beneficial to. And just a couple of things about SJNA before we get going, in case there's anybody that is new to a meeting. The St. John's Neighborhood Association, per our bylaws, the purpose is to enhance the livability of the area, and it's by multiple ways. Sorry, Zoom settings, there we go. So we consider and act on issues that affect the livability and quality of the neighborhood, provide an open process by which all members may involve themselves in the affairs of the neighborhood, and we'll get to exactly what makes a member of SJNA. We can take positions in matters of civic interest, promote these positions, inform residents of events or plans affecting the neighborhood, and establish and maintain open lines of communication with other organizations, such as district coalitions, other neighborhood associations, city, county, regional, and state government agencies. So what makes you a member? It's very simple. All residents 16 years of age and older, property owners, business licensees, and nonprofit organizations located or performing a significant part of their services within the boundaries of SJNA, so within the boundaries of St. John's, and all members of the Cathedral Park Neighborhood Association as defined in the bylaws of that association. So if anybody doesn't know, technically anything like south of Ivanhoe is Cathedral Park. You are welcome and a member of SJNA as well. So if you live anywhere this side of the railroad, you're a member, and that means you can actually vote this evening. There is no requirement of attending a certain amount of meetings or anything like that, in an effort to make it as accessible as possible. So you can participate if and when the time comes this evening. And the final thing, and we'll get into this, is we do have 5 board positions open. We can have up to 15 members. We have 10 currently. There's 5 at-large positions open. So if you have something you want to get done, if you have something where you think, why isn't the neighborhood association doing that? Or if you just want to help out, you can join the board. There is a monthly board meeting, and then really there's a bit of a choose your own adventure, if you will, as a board member of the projects you can be involved with and participate in. The example I'll give is Mr. Paul Rippey over here. He's the block party czar, and that was a passion project of Paul's that he went and got the grant funding to help host 31 block parties last summer throughout St. John's with roughly 1,000 attendees. So thank you to Paul for bringing the neighborhood together there. It's called Safer Together, but that's something championed by Paul, and he went and got the grant and made it happen. And so that's really kind of an example of the work that you can do as part of the board. You have a lot of freedom to explore opportunities such as that. So with that, and for those of you that have been to a meeting before, you know what time it is. It's the most enthralling time of the meeting. It's approving last month's minutes. So we sent this out in the email newsletter last week, and the reminder yesterday. We have our meeting minutes from April. What we're going to do is just very kind of slowly Star Wars scroll through these minutes. And we will then take any sort of revisions or corrections if there's anything that Paul messed up. Sorry, I'm just kidding, Paul. You're great. Please take the minutes tonight. And we will make those corrections, and then we'll hopefully have a vote.
We'd like to have it on there just in case.
Yeah, there might be someone in the room. I know that's a little small, but we'll work on that for a future one. So we're going to scroll through here. Please just give us a minute, play the Jeopardy theme in your head, and shout out if there's anything that you see as a mistake, whether it's a spelling of your name or someone you know or anything like that. And actually, for those on Zoom, I will just drop the link into the chat. So life is easier for Zoom. So we approved 2 months of meeting minutes last time, so it was a real barn burner, real extravaganza last month. We went through the results of the St. John's Culture Survey, which our board member Kim Larson spent a lot of time putting together, from designing to soliciting responses to analyzing and presenting. So a big kudos to Kim, and all of that information is available. And as you can see here, there's Kim's email address, klarson@luminoso.com. This information is, we're not trying to gatekeep it. So you can take a look at it, you can learn from it, just get in touch. The boosters had their spring fling, and Rebecca's on to update about anything upcoming on their front in just a little bit. Donna updated on the emergency routes. There's going to be a little bit more about that this evening. And Patrick, you did complete the application for the grant funding since this meeting, correct? For the voter education project. Sure. So be on the lookout. Yeah, great. And the meeting ended at 8:39. Do we have a motion to approve the April general meeting minutes? Got a motion. Do you have a second? There's a second? Any corrections, changes, or debate here? 2004 survey. Right here. 2004. That would be an interesting if there was a 2004 culture survey. I would love to see the results of that. 2024. Thank you very much. All right. Any other updates or conversation, debate around the meeting minutes? Anything on Zoom? All right. So what we will do here is raise your hand in the room or on Zoom if you are opposed to the motion to approve. We will attempt to pass this unanimously. If there is opposition, we'll take official roll call vote here. So anybody opposed to the approval of the April meeting minutes? None in the room. Anything? Any hands raised on Zoom? Well, all right. So that passes unanimously. The April meeting minutes are approved. Thank you very much. All right. So we're on to the real stuff here. So coming up first, we have an update from ODOT around some construction projects in or close to the neighborhood around the St. John's Bridge, Bridge Ave, and along US 30 on the other side there. So we have Ellen from ODOT, who I believe I saw on the Zoom. Ellen, are you there?
I am here. Can you see
Hey
me?
there. Welcome in. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And do you need me to share the PDF, or do you plan to share from your screen this evening?
I had not planned on sharing the PDF. I have some updated pictures that I could share. Actually, if you wouldn't mind sharing the PDF, and I'll do a quick update.
Yeah,
And
I'll share what you had sent over to me, and we can and you can speak to whatever you wish. Let me just bring that up here.
oh, great. And then if you go to the second page,
Second
or
page.
whatever yeah. So this was a mailer we sent out last winter about 6 projects in your area. And I'm guessing that you're going to be happy with the updates I have tonight. So we have on the left, these are US 30 projects, these 3 repaving between the St. John's Bridge and Kittredge on US 30. And then this one in the center is Willamette River stormwater improvement. And that actually it's many sites, about 21 sites along US 30, and then on either side of the St. John's Bridge and on either side of the Fremont Bridge. I'll talk about that one a little bit. And then there's the culvert rehabilitation. There's 4 culverts we're going to be working on underneath US 30. And 3 will be rehabilitated. They'll be strengthened from the inside. They'll be cleaned out and relined. And then 1 will be decommissioned. So it will be filled. The water is not using it anymore. So that's those 3. And then we can go to the right here. And we've got the St. John's Bridge repair, which I'm sure you guys are very familiar with, happening underneath the St. John's Bridge in Cathedral Park. And then we've got in the center here, Northwest Bridge Avenue. It's just finished 2 months early. And then we've got this one on the right is in very early design. I don't have a lot of information on it other than it's the other side of Bridge Avenue, the part that was open, and it's strengthening underneath the bridge, working on the arches underneath. So I wanted to share a little bit more information on 3 of these projects. So number 1 was the Northwest Bridge Avenue just opened. It's done. They moved really quickly on that one. Thank you so much for your patience during the traffic impacts. I heard that was a lot. They installed over 16,000 square feet of pinned mesh on that hillside above Northwest Bridge Avenue. Yeah, you can see it right there. And they actually had time and budget left at the end to repave the road. So if you've been on that, oh yeah, I'll drop a link. This document that he's showing is on all of our websites. And so I can drop a link to that in the chat. So yeah, that project stabilizes the hillside next to Bridge Ave, and so it reduces the likelihood of rockfall events in the future. The next one I want to share an update on is the St. John's Bridge repair project. So 6 piers have been completed. The concrete we're finding is a lot more damage than we originally thought. So the piers are taking a lot longer than we anticipated to redo all that concrete. It's actually kind of interesting. They go up in those scaffolding and they tap the concrete and they listen, and depending on what they hear, they can tell if it's cracked or not. So, and then they have restored some of those. So the project that has cost a lot more than we anticipated. So they're anticipating finishing the work on the arches in June or July and doing the park restoration below and finishing that by September. We don't think we're going to be able to finish all of the piers that we had originally planned to do, just because they took a lot longer and cost a lot more than we expected. The third is the Willamette River Stormwater Improvement Project. So it's an early design and it's an interesting one. So on either side of the St. John's Bridge and on either side of the Fremont Bridge, and then at many sites up along US 30, we're going to be installing stormwater filtration systems in the water runoff. So the water that runs off of the road will go down. There's a system, drainage system already there. So it'll go through that existing drainage system, but there will be a filter in there, filtering the water before it gets to the river. So on your end, you'll see an above ground facility under the bridge on your side. And the other side, but that's a change you'll see right there. So those are my key updates that I wanted to share. I'm going to drop a link to one of these projects. This is the Northwest Bridge Avenue project, and yeah, that's my updates. But if you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer questions or comments.
I do have one quick one, Ellen, on that last point that you brought up about the above ground filtration systems. Did you say underneath both sides of the St. John's Bridge?
Yeah, on either side of the bridge, we'll have a stormwater collection system. And I'm not sure what type. In our next round of outreach next winter, we'll probably drill down into more detail, but yes, they're on each side.
So it would be in Cathedral Park, the one on the north side of the Willamette River, the filtration system, or would it, how big are we talking? Would it be, is it intrusive? Is it a very small thing? Is it, what kind of scale are we talking about?
That is a good question. I don't know. I know that the filtration system next to the Fremont Bridge under those ramps will be quite a bit bigger. I don't know. I think it's 10 feet by 10 feet, but that's just from my memory, and I could definitely be wrong. I would have to ask to be sure.
Thank you. Yeah, if you could follow up and send an email, and I can share in a future newsletter with anybody with with the updates around that. If you have any questions, we have a microphone in the room, or and then on Zoom as well, you could raise your hand, and we can go through about 5-6 minutes of questions here. So, yeah, please go ahead.
I guess I was just expecting that we would get an update on the emergency routes. Was that not on the?
So Zeph Wagner from
Someone
PBOT
else. Okay.
will be here to discuss emergency route. Yes, after this. Sorry for any confusion there, folks. We have multiple dots being here. Yeah.
For the bridge repair, because it ran over budget and not all the pillars are able to be fixed, was that a cosmetic fix or was it a safety fix?
Let's see, I've been calling that one a preservation project because I mean, they look great now, right? So they look really nice, but the steel underneath is original steel. And so it also protected that steel frame of the bridge. So we didn't want the water and things getting through and corroding that steel frame. Does that answer your question?
Go ahead.
So do we still have safety issues because not all the pillars can be repaired because we're over budget?
That is a great question. I don't know. I don't know. I just got this update today. So I don't know. I think we're in that phase where we're just making the decision um, to not do all of them. And so I'm not sure. I don't think we have a plan yet for the next steps. So yeah, I don't know. I would have to ask. Would you like me to ask about that?
Yeah, that'd be great if you could follow up and just, yeah, it could be one sort of follow-up to me and I can share out with the community there. But if that could be on the list, that'd be great. We have another question in the room here.
Well, it's in that same vein, but it's just a slightly different angle on it. If it was something that was worth doing in the first place, and then it was discovered that it was an even bigger issue than was initially perceived to be, deciding to not complete it, like that seems alarming.
Right, yeah. Hopefully it'll just take longer situation because they need to invest more time in each pillar and not we're only going to do 7 of the 9 now because, yeah, absolutely. There's definite concerns there with on this front if it's a case where is it just a delay of the pillars or is it a sort of stop work on the rest? That's going to be a key thing for us in the neighborhood to know.
Okay.
Yeah, we have one more question in the room there, and then we'll move on. So one more, Ellen.
Yeah, on the south side of the bridge, some of the railing was taken out and replaced with just a cover, like a steel cover. And that's like, to me, takes away from the beauty of the bridge. And wondering is this a temporary fix or will that be the permanent one in place?
On which end?
South
end.
south end.
Yeah.
On just one side or
Oh, the south end on on the west side.
Okay, so south end, west side, which would be Bridge Avenue. Right, yeah, but if you're facing towards St. John's, the left hand
Yeah,
side.
on the left. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I will have to look into that. I don't know why it was removed and there's something else up there.
Yeah, it just looks like a temporary fix, but it's hard to tell if it's just temporary or that's what they're gonna keep permanently there.
Great. So, yeah, I get if you could add that as well in terms of a follow-up, Ellen, that would be great, and I can make sure that we pass along these updates to the neighborhood in the next newsletter.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, that's
Right.
all the questions I'm seeing here. Thanks, Donna. Okay, so thanks, Ellen. You are all set. I appreciate you coming out to the meeting this evening.
All right. Thanks for having me. Have a good night.
All right, have a good one.
Bye.
All right, we're keeping good time. I saw Zeph joined on Zoom, but Zeph's over here as well. Hey, if you want to come, just take my seat and my job, by all means, and then we can get going here.
So do I just share?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you can share on Zoom.
You can share on Zoom.
And then this will get both audio.
Okay, so I don't need to do any
Nope,
audio.
no, you're good there. Please keep that muted, otherwise we'll get the horrible.
Yeah. All right, can everybody hear me? What was that? Yeah. So I'm Zeph Wagner. I'm a senior transportation planner at the Portland Bureau of Transportation. Was that?
He's
Right here.
and he'll be sharing in a minute.
Yeah, we're good.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll share my screen in a second. Might as well do that now. Just make sure here. So I'm here to talk about some bridge feasibility study work we've done, looking at the condition and potential replacement, what it would look like, what it would cost for particularly the Columbia Boulevard Bridge over the railroad cut, sort of at the northeast corner of St. John's. We've also done some preliminary assessment of the other 3 bridges that cross the railroad cut, thinking about resiliency and just overall condition, since those are really critical links for the neighborhood, in addition to some other bridges around the neighborhood that I'll talk about. And I know this has been a really big topic of conversation lately in the neighborhood. So let me share my presentation here. All right. Working? All right. So let me, oops, get back there, hide this. Get my things out of the way here. All right, so where we kind of started was a couple years ago with the Portland Freight Committee. There was a pretty strong, which is our advisory committee representing freight interests, trucking especially, trucking and rail. They were getting concerned about the condition of some of the critical bridges in the Columbia corridor for freight movement, for trucking in particular, and both in terms of resiliency for earthquakes, but also just the condition of the bridges causing weight restrictions, things like that, which are more and more common. So they recommended using $400,000 of heavy vehicle use tax funding, which is a special tax we have just on the truckers in the region that can be used for these kinds of projects and studies. And we looked at 3 bridges. 2 of them are in St. John's. One was the what we call the Burgard Bridge up on Lombard north of Pier Park that goes up to Rivergate. That one we successfully we did a study for the feasibility of replacing the bridge. We came up with a cost estimate, and we successfully applied for a grant. So that project is underway. It's starting design soon. So that's really good news as far as being the one major bridge connecting the freight route from the St. John's Bridge up to Rivergate. And because that bridge is in very poor condition, over 100 years old. So that's good news. So then we also wanted to look at the Columbia Boulevard. It's actually 2 bridges over, or 3 bridges, I should say, over Columbia Way and the railroad cut. And then we also looked at 33rd Avenue to the east. I'm not going to go over that one in this presentation since it's a little farther from the neighborhood, but that one was closed for about a year recently because it failed. So a lot of these bridges are an issue. So just to focus on that Columbia Boulevard set of bridges, it kind of seems like one bridge, but it's actually 3 separate structures. There was the original bridge in 1909, was back when Columbia Boulevard was a narrower street. That was built when the railroad cut was put in, which was 1908, 1909, when that BNSF railroad went in. And then at some point, at 1968, Columbia Boulevard was widened and turned into the major sort of road it is today. And that's when a separate bridge was built kind of parallel to it. And then the whole interchange there around Columbia Boulevard and Portland Road and Columbia Way was constructed then. And so there was a bridge built over Columbia Way. All of them are very old. Obviously the one in 1909 is over 100 years old. They're seismically vulnerable.
we don't know how bad an earthquake will be when it happens. We know one will happen eventually, and the results could be anywhere from it's somewhat damaged and unusable right away, but it could be kind of patched up, or they could be completely unusable for a long period of time. So they're really concerning there. They are in danger of weight restriction. They also have a risk of failure. You might have heard the term fracture critical. So the 1909 bridge has the type of supports that if there was a train derailment, the bridge could actually collapse, which there's been other cases of that around the country and in the Pacific Northwest. So all of these factors make it a pretty big priority to replace these. It's obviously a major truck street, really important freight corridor from Rivergate to the freeways, to the Columbia Corridor. It's also critically the only PBOT-owned bridge connection crossing the railroad cut. You would think that the other ones would be owned by us, but they're actually owned by the BNSF Railroad, which is very strange. It's one of the only cases where the railroad owns the bridges that cross the railroad, but they're not railroad roads. So it's a very strange ownership situation. The Columbia Boulevard one was originally theirs, but we think it was transferred to Multnomah County in 68 when those other bridges were built. And then it was transferred to PBOT when we did the annexation of the Columbia Corridor from Multnomah County. So that's how we kind of inherited this bridge. It has narrow sidewalk on just one side. It has no bicycle connections at all. It's pretty hard to get to unless you're driving, and even if you're driving, it's kind of a lot of interchange, kind of difficult ramps and things. So this really is a big priority. So when we scoped out a replacement, we worked with HDR Engineering, a great consultant firm. They scoped it out as two separate bridges, basically where they are today, clear spanning over the railroad, one over the railroad, one over the Columbia Way. Because modern clearance standards over the railroad are much higher, so they can fit in their double, loaded cars. Those are really strict clearance requirements. I think it's 26 feet or something like that. Because of that higher clearance, the whole set of bridges would have to be much higher. And that means you have to chase it back, so to speak, the roads back. So this shaded area is really the whole section of the road that would have to be raised up to kind of make the grades work and connect the surrounding roads to the bridges. So it makes it much more expensive, quite significant. There'd also have to be some work on some of these connecting roads. Oops, went the wrong direction. As far as a cross section, for the purposes of this feasibility study, this could always change or be value engineered, but we talked sort of to different people at PBOT, engineers, planners, things like that. And we landed on this cross section, basically keeping the roadway fairly similar, sort of a raised median in the middle, which could help with crossover, prevent people from crossing over the center line. Still keeping the 2 lanes in each direction. It's very busy, very high traffic freight road. Having a sidewalk on the north side, which there isn't one today. And then on the south side, having basically a wide multi-use path, because there are some bicycle connections and paths like the Peninsula Crossing Trail nearby. So we'd really like to create, the south side is really where all the destinations are, where the neighborhood is and those trails. And so we thought it'd make sense just to save money to concentrate the path on just the south side. We would also need a traffic circulation change because of the grade of the roadway. So basically, right now, if you're going northeast on Columbia Way, there's this kind of on-ramp onto Columbia Boulevard, and that would kind of run into a wall based on this. And we don't really think it'd be worth building an even steeper ramp up when people can just go under the bridge, take a left at the traffic light, circle around, and get exactly where they want to go. So we think it would be worth closing that ramp. And we looked at the traffic numbers, and it looked like there'd be really negligible impact in terms of traffic delay of just using this alternate route. This is showing some ideas for how we would make that work and some connections. So if we close this ramp here on the east right part of the image, we'd still have to have essentially a driveway to serve these properties. We would want to realign Taft Avenue to be more like a T intersection here with Columbia Way. And to get bicyclists especially, but also pedestrians who are down on Columbia Way up to Columbia Boulevard, we noticed there was this undeveloped right-of-way along Taft Avenue that's just a field. And it's fairly flat right there. So we'd propose a multi-use path connection and a crossing of Columbia Way. And then we'd have this really wide sidewalk, essentially a path on the south side of Columbia Boulevard, all the way from McCrum across and over to the Peninsula Crossing Trail on the east side, and potentially even all the way to Portsmouth, because there's also a path over there. So it kind of depends on how much we want to bite off with this. You can tell it's already getting pretty big. So just to reiterate and go over the costs, so it would be 2 bridges plus all this tying in, a lot of extra work and some signal improvements. And you add all this together, and the estimate was $57.5 million. That's fully loaded with kind of design costs and the various soft costs and contingencies, because this is an early study and there's a lot of unknowns that could come up. And that's inflated to several years from now, which is our usual approach, because these projects would take a long time. We haven't secured any of this funding. This is just the first step to be able to seek funding. And so it's good work. We are concerned that this is a pretty high number. Most of our recent bridge projects have been between $15 and $25 million. I think the Rivergate Overcrossing was the biggest one we've done recently. That was maybe 20 to 25. So this is pretty massive. And most of the grant funding sources require a 20% local match. So it'd be very challenging for PBOT in our current fiscal environment to come up with anywhere close to $10 million or more for that local match. So that's the real barrier, I would say. I think this would be a very competitive project for a lot of the grant programs out there on the merits, but it's really the cost and the local match requirement that would be the biggest barrier to us addressing that. So real quick, there was also, we've heard a lot about those other bridges and just wanting to look more holistically at the whole railroad cut issue. And so, like I said, these other 3 bridges, Willamette, Lombard, and Fessenden, were all built by BNSF Railroad when they built the railroad cut. I've looked at the ordinance that created the railroad cut from 1908. It's very interesting. The city council gave them permission to cut through the neighborhood. All those streets connected. They cut through with the trench, and they were required under the ordinance to build these 4 bridges and maintain them in perpetuity. And of course, they haven't done that. Over time, it's just hasn't been a priority for them. They're not worried that much. They're not their roads. So it's kind of like not core to their business. And there wasn't a lot of teeth in that ordinance for, well, how do you define good maintenance, or how would you address them not being adequately maintained? And there was nothing in there about what would happen when they just reached the end of their lives, which they have. Bridges aren't really meant to last over 100 years without really being maintained and strengthened and retrofitted and eventually replaced. So it creates a kind of a governance issue. And I should mention, Fessenden and Willamette are both PBOT roads. Lombard is an ODOT road, the state highway department, because it's Highway 30. So there's two transportation jurisdictions involved and the railroad in these bridges. So we did an assessment of these bridges, and just to focus on one, thought I'd focus on the Lombard Bridge, because that is the other designated seismic resiliency route. Columbia and Lombard are the 2 that, from a seismic concern perspective at the regional level, have been identified as the major routes we'd want to, for evacuation or for delivering supplies, things like that, that we most want to focus on, although the other two are very important as well. So like I said, this is a ODOT highway. It is within a PBOT right-of-way, so there's yet again multiple sort of jurisdictions involved. So basically, we own the sidewalks, they own the road, and then BNSF Railroad owns the bridge. They've really not been adequately maintained. It's in very poor condition. It's rated in very poor condition, the lowest possible condition rating for the deck and for the structure itself. Got significant rust and corrosion issues. It's got cracks in the bents, which are the support beams. You've probably seen the fences, the railings on all three of these bridges are really poor. Pieces of them have fallen down and kind of have, you know, they've repaired it a little bit, but just barely. And these are likely to fail in a moderate to severe earthquake. There's a lot of landslide risk as well at the ends of them. And they would really need a really full retrofit or preferably replacement in the near future to prevent them from being weight restricted. I think Fessenden has been weight restricted. The other two are very close. And if Lombard was weight restricted, it would be a really big deal because that's the overdimensional freight route designated at the state level. So that would really impact the freight community as well. Our estimate for the Lombard Bridge was $37 million. And then all of this is pretty much the same for the other two. They're all in pretty comparable condition. I would say Lombard is a little more important from the kind of traffic and freight perspective. Willamette is pretty important for bikes, major bike route. And Willamette also has a major water line that's attached to the bridge. And I know the Water Bureau has expressed concern about this bridge as well, and has even looked themselves into replacing the bridge. I think they thought it was too expensive as well. So yeah, there's a lot of people interested in this, a lot of agencies. And I guess the main, yeah, that's the end of my presentation. The main message I would say about these is it's very similar to, if you've heard the term orphan highways. I was really involved in the 82nd Avenue transfer that recently happened from the state to the city. And it's kind of a similar situation, but even worse, because whenever you have the problem with an orphan highway like 82nd or even Lombard as well, is that because they're not interstate freeways, the state highway departments tend to not prioritize them as much. And so with limited funding, they tend to pour more of their money into maintaining and fixing up the freeways and less into these older highways that pre-existed before the freeways. And so eventually people say, well, it should just be transferred to the city. But then we as asset owners, we have billions of dollars in maintenance backlog. And so the last thing we want to do is take on another failed asset without funding attached to it. So with 82nd, it finally got worked out where the legislature did the transfer, but it came with $150 million of funding, which isn't enough to fix everything, but it's enough to make a big difference. Without that, it really wouldn't have been responsible for us to take it on because we couldn't have fixed the problems. And so with these, you have a railroad owning the bridges, and there's not really, the railroads can't even apply for grants for those, and we can't apply for grants for their bridges. So they're kind of stuck in this truly orphaned situation. And you know, it would really take all the agencies working together, but also probably something at the legislative, you know, state legislature level probably to try to come up with the funding to be able to address those bridges and work out a deal for who would own it, who would maintain them, you know, all that kind of thing. So it's a very challenging issue for us. Yeah. So yeah, happy to, we have time.
We'll be able to have like 10 minutes for questions, and we'll take them up here and on Zoom raising of hands. So please come up here. Yeah, we'll just, if everybody could come up here for their questions.
Yeah.
For this one.
Thanks for your presentation. That was really fascinating. You answered some of my questions. So I had some ideas of like, could we work with BNSF for those other bridges? But it sounds like that's complicated, so I won't go there. So the first one that you talked about, the Columbia Way, what about, that sounds like the trucking companies are interested and have a stake in making sure that that's going to work. So would that be a source of funding to help make up whatever the shortfall is that we would need?
Yeah, for sure. The heavy vehicle use tax I talked about would definitely be a good source of funding for that. The issue is really the amount that would be required, because we collect about $10 million every 4 years from that. So if we used it for even just the local match on that bridge replacement for a federal grant, it still wouldn't be enough, and it would eat up 4 years worth of revenue. And we use that for lots of paving projects and safety projects and things all over the freight network. So we could probably use a little bit of it, but not all of it. So really, I think what's needed is probably fundraising from multiple sources, and not just PBOT. I think our feeling is that even though it's owned by us, it's really a road. Columbia Boulevard is a road of statewide significance. You know, this is the busiest freight corridor in the state. The Columbia Corridor Association always talks about that. It's very important, and if it failed, it would be a huge issue for the freight industry and for the neighborhood and just, you know, commerce. And so I would hope that that might be a way in to make the case that it shouldn't just be our responsibility, because we don't have access to most of the funding. I mean, the state gets a lot of funding for bridges that never flows down to us, and it all stays at kind of that state level. So it's really a question of how much of a priority this is seen at a higher level than just the city.
And so what efforts are being made to bring those various stakeholders together and also work with the legislature to get something to happen?
Well, we have been meeting with ODOT and talking more and more with them. A lot of the advocacy that's happened from folks in St. John's is definitely working. ODOT has asked us, or has kind of broached the idea of going in together on a study to really look more deeply at these, basically take it to the next level of really looking at these 4 bridges, prioritizing them, doing more proper feasibility studies on the other 3, and coming up with a funding strategy. So that would be one potential way to approach it. And then also getting BNSF to the table, because we've been in contact with them, but it's very hard to get them to really engage. But I think if we started like a more focused effort, we could probably get them to the table. But getting elected officials involved is, you know, could be pretty important, but that really has to come from the community. You know, we find it's not very effective when agencies just kind of ask, please talk to us. They really are responsive to their constituents.
Thanks, I'll let someone else, yeah. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. I guess you answered my question a little bit about what BNSF was saying about offloading those assets to, I don't know, PBOT or someone else. And I was just going to like follow up, like, have you talked with them, or has it just been they've kind of not been responsive about offloading that?
We've talked to them, and they've kind of made vague statements like, we would be happy to support any efforts to secure funding for these bridges. So I think they're kind of saying we would write a letter of support or something if you wanted to pay for the, you know, and if you wanted to take them off our hands. But that's not really enough to get us to want to do it, because we really would need a commitment of actual dollars. You know, we could still go after grants, so I doubt we would ask them to pay the entire amount, even though that, you know, you could argue that's justified. But you know, really we want to just have a real conversation with them. But until they really feel like it's worth their while, it's hard to get them to come to the table, because they're a business, they're very centrally directed at a national level. Like, they don't have a lot of, the local people don't have a lot of autonomy. So yeah, in my experience, these things don't really happen unless there's some pressure from pretty high up. It's a little hard at the agency staff level to get them. They'll just sort of say, well, we don't have a problem with those bridges, because they don't. I mean, if the bridges fell down, they would just clear the rubble and keep moving the trains a few days later. You know, it wouldn't be that disruptive to them. So I don't think they have a sort of an incentive right now
Okay.
to deal with the issue. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry to be so depressing. It's a tough one.
So hi, Zeph.
Yep.
Donna Cohen. So I have seen this presentation before. I think it was January or whatever that you did it to the Freight Committee. And you know about the commitments that are in the 2040 Freight Plan, the one being, you know, Columbia Boulevard, doing the engineering study, and we've done that, and then getting that now rebuilt, and then the other commitment was for PBOT to spearhead collaboration for Lombard, the multi-jurisdictional project. I guess what I'm concerned about here tonight is that you went through your whole presentation, which was not new information, and didn't speak to, until you had questions, what we can do, what PBOT has done, and what the community can do. I hear you saying that there needs to be some pressure from the community, that, you know, some things we maybe need help from the legislature or whatever. We need to work together, the community and PBOT. In other words, it's not enough to come here and say, here's the situation, and essentially we haven't done anything, because until you were asked, you didn't indicate that anything has been done since the time the commitments were made in December. We need to hear from PBOT on a regular basis. We need communication and to know what we can do and what you are doing, and for us to work together so that something can get done. And you know that I've had prior experiences with PBOT, 11 years working on Fessenden, and I know from that experience that without prodding, PBOT wouldn't do anything until we prodded them. And if we have to prod PBOT again, we will, but wouldn't it be nice if instead of having to resort to that, PBOT actively knew that we need to be part of this process, and that we can work together, and if you're having meetings, and if you need community representation, or if you need the community to send emails or whatever, or to stand on Lombard at the cut and have the press come out so that the press can know and the city can know that we are not going to let PBOT just sit back and say, we need a lot of money and we don't know where we're going to get it. That's not sufficient. I will stop there and hope that I've made my message clear, okay?
Yes, for sure. Consider myself prodded. Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest issue is funding. I know that's frustrating to hear, but we're going through a budget crisis. We had to make a lot of cuts, and we barely kind of got through without massive layoffs. And so, yeah, we definitely consider it a priority and want to work on it. But sort of having regular meetings like that and really focusing on it, that's becoming a planning effort. And so we need funding just for that, to actually have the staff. If I was going to come out here every month or every 2 weeks, that costs a lot of money. I can do one of these once in a while, kind of with my operating budget, but the kind of effort you're describing really needs to be a project. And so the first step, which we are talking with ODOT about, it would be applying for a grant, planning grant. There is a program called Protect at the federal level that's for resiliency, both planning and projects. And the planning grants don't require any local match at all. So it's 100% federal money. So one of our thoughts has been that that might be a good first step, would be to secure some money just to be able to fund the staff at multiple agencies and reimburse the NSF for their time, because they really won't come to the table without getting paid to go to meetings. And they will go to meetings if they get paid for it. So it's like, first we need to get money to actually be able to even engage in this issue at the level that it needs to. And then that can lead to the large amount of funding needed to actually make the improvements. So it will take some time, but we are working on it. Yeah.
Time, so we'll try to speed it up. We've got a question from Zoom, Patrick,
Yeah.
and then we'll go back to the line.
Yep, I can read this one out here real quick. It's from Tracy Farwell, reading verbatim here. Not offloading assets from BNSF to city or state, it's offloading liabilities as in an effective subsidy. Why not have BNSF remit government for deferred/ignored maintenance?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and that's something that, you know, the city would have to consider carefully, is really looking at that ordinance and what could be required of them. I don't really know the legal case that could be made for that, and the legislature, again, would probably have more power when it comes to that, but it's certainly something that we can consider, is sort of how much should they have been doing, and how much do they owe? But also, we have to be honest about how much power the railroads have in this country. They really have been given a lot of deference by the courts and a lot of power to, you know, they don't always have to follow the rules of a public agency, you know, so it can be tough. But yeah, I agree with the sentiment. Yeah.
So I had a question. So that design of the bridge, that was, you guys contracted that out to a private company and they designed the suggested bridge, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like an
Okay.
engineering firm, yeah.
Would there be community input in the future for that, or is that just that private company made it and that's the final draft you guys are going with?
Well, we went around to things like the Freight Committee and the Bike Advisory Committee, things like that. We did a lot of looking at it at the staff level, but these feasibility studies, it's really just a very high-level concept to get an initial cost estimate, to get kind of a general idea. But if we were actually going to do the real design phase, if we got any funding for this bridge, it would involve a ton of community involvement. We would probably change a lot of the details about it. This is really just kind of like an early best guesstimate of sort of trying to account for all the things that could possibly be in there and the costs. But yeah, we would go through a ton of public involvement when it comes to actually designing the bridge, and we could make it smaller, we could make it bigger, you know, all those kind of things.
Once you had the acorns.
Yeah, yeah, like
Cool.
we need some seed money. This was a very small amount of money. 400,000 for 3 bridges is barely any, so it's, yeah.
Quickly, and I know you know this because you just said it, but how intractable the railroads are and how insanely insanely powerful they are. So I just Googled this, and BNSF's profit in 2023 was $7 billion. Profit, not revenues, profit. So that's a rounding error to build a few bridges if they wanted to. Their CEO 12 years ago was making $3.7 million. It all belongs to Warren Buffett, and they make their money taking the tar sands from Alberta here so we can destroy the planet. So these are not the good guys. So if you want support, talk to the citizens, and I think you could get letters written and pick us, and we'll get, I mean, we can mobilize some people. I mean, I would help you mobilize people, because I think you need people, because Congress they won't do anything. I mean, it's too much money, so.
Yeah, it's very hard to, even though they have such profits, they kind of feel like the reason is because they are so strict about these things. And so ultimately, I've found the best way to get the railroads to do something is to find something else that they want from us. And it might be somewhere completely different, or at the state level, it could be somewhere different in the state, but it has to be a negotiation. It really has to be like, what is in it for them? It could be something unrelated.
I was just curious if the port closing down has any priority with this, with more trucks being on the roads for freight?
Potentially. that can be kind of a mixed bag because it can lead to more trucks, but also the port was bringing in containers that then get transferred to trucks. So it's always a little hard to tell whether that will lead to more trucks or fewer trucks, but certainly truck traffic has been increasing for just long term for a long time. That's been the general trend. So yeah, that might be a little bit of additional impetus, but this is a major issue no matter what. And it would impact the railroad as well, you know, even though the impact wouldn't be quite as big on them, still disruptive, so.
Last question.
Do you know if any other municipalities have gotten them to repair bridges that they're obligated to repair? And if so, what methods they use to get them to do that?
I mean, I would love to find some, but I've never been able to find anybody else in this situation because I don't think any other city probably did this. I mean, it's unheard of. It's typically you would have required them to build bridges and maybe put money into a maintenance fund, but they would still be owned by the state or the city. Because I think it wasn't a good idea to have them, I can say it because it was a long time ago, they're not around anymore, but I think there's actually the mayor at the time, it's attached to the ordinance, wrote a long thing against it. He actually vetoed it. Back then mayors could veto and then council could override. So the mayor wrote a thing saying this is a terrible idea, they won't maintain them, what happens when they need to be replaced, basically predicted exactly what would happen and vetoed it, and then the council overrode him. So I think probably because the railroad was very powerful in their lobbying. So yeah, I've looked around, it's possible they're out there, but in the research I've tried to do, I can't seem to find any other examples. So it makes it a very unique issue.
I guess it's kind of a similar question, but do you know of municipalities being able to get the railroad to do anything specific, you know, inexpensive that they don't necessarily feel an interest to do?
I mean, like I said, the biggest thing is to find something they want. I don't know the details, but I do know that when the East Bank Esplanade was built, there was the railroad was very resistant to having the bridge over the railroad at the Rose Quarter. And that was a huge point of contention. And then Vera Katz sent a negotiator to Omaha to their central office. They did this intense negotiation. I think they found some other thing in the city that the railroad wanted that the city could do to help them out with something. And they made a deal. And so that's my impression, is that that's usually what's required, is either money or some kind of a negotiated trade of, you know, we'll let you build an extra track over here, and in exchange, you know, you do that for us. So yeah, something like that.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
This is all the time that we have here.
Yeah, hope that was helpful. It's a big issue, but we'll keep working on it.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. And thanks everybody for your questions. Alrighty. That was not encouraging. Not just, it's a mountain to climb. But I do think that a lot of what we're getting at, we know it's going to be difficult. We know the role that we can play. That's talking to our state representatives and our state senators. Part of the benefit of being cut into two districts is we have 2 senators and 2 representatives that need to care about this issue. So talking with them, making sure every city council candidate knows this is a priority and this is an issue to pay attention to. Finding an email for BNSF and annoying them because maybe their sanity is worth something to them. And so we have a role to play in this, and we need to stay on it. And so Donna's been doing a wonderful job of doing this and staying on it and making sure we stay on it. I received many an email from Donna. She is a great advocate for this neighborhood. And so we need to continue our efforts, get creative. And I do think there's power in number and in this movement. So we can do something about this. We need to keep doing it rung by rung on the ladder and we will get to that end goal. But we can't let that end goal being up there keep us from achieving each rung. So appreciate you all being here and your questions, and let's keep pushing on this. And let's keep sharing email addresses for people who might be able to do something about it. Okay. So next on the agenda, we have some updates from community organizations. The St. John's Boosters are up first, so thanks for hanging around. I know it's a little bit later on the agenda than originally planned, but take it away.
Hi, everyone. Well, also living here, it's part of being at the meeting, hearing the depressing news. And Paul, I will strike with you anytime you want with that railroad. Time you to the track. Okay. So boosters, we had a wonderful turnout for the spring fling, even with the poor weather. It was a huge, wonderful event, and I think everybody had a good time, participants, businesses, etc. So another wonderful, successful spring fling for us. Upcoming, we have throughout the summer, we do June, July, and August, Thursday night game nights in the plaza, just to kind of help activate the plaza, get people there, at least during a weeknight, to have some fun. Different businesses have signed up to host each night, and we had gotten a grant last year for, I shouldn't say, I don't think it was a grant. I think it was funding from, I'm not gonna say which organization because I'm not 100% sure. We got some funding because of all the construction on Lombard for a huge collection of games. It's a really fun time. They go 6 to 8. It's going to start June 6th and go through August 29th. Again, that's Thursdays, and you'll see us promoting that on our social media as well. But everybody and anybody is welcome to come hang out, play a game, meet the business that's hosting, all that kind of good stuff. And I think that's everything for now for the boosters.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Any questions or anything on the boosters front from anyone? No. Okay. We have a spot here for the St. John Center for Opportunity. If anybody is in the room or on Zoom from them. Bueller.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Hello.
Hi,
Yes.
I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Nikki. I'm the new Programs and Outreach Coordinator. You guys might be familiar with Dave. He was in my role before myself. I haven't actually met I think most all of you in person yet, but I look forward to coming in at the next month's meeting to meet you in person. And thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here, Nikki. And the farmers market is back, right? It started on the 4th?
It started on May 4th, yes.
Great.
Yeah.
And so
It was a rainy start, but this weekend was, of course, the complete opposite of that and very beautiful and fell in line with all of the other festivities. So I'm looking forward to hearing how it went tomorrow when I come into the office. And yeah.
And same bat time, same bat channel in terms of years past for hours and whatnot on Saturday?
Yes. And a lot of the same vendors that were there last year with a couple new folks. So yeah.
Great. Thank you, Nikki.
You're welcome.
All right. We have a couple of minutes for other community organizations to provide an update, a 2-minute update. If there's anybody in the room that's part of a group, for example, last meeting we had the St. John's Parade, St. John's Boosters, St. John's Bazaar speak about their upcoming events. So if there's any community groups in the room or on Zoom, we can give you a couple of minutes here. We've got one coming. Come on down.
Yeah, and on Zoom, go ahead and raise your hand if you have something.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Tom. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Johnny. I'm the PTA president here at James John. And we are currently, at this moment, hosting an event over at McMinimans, where McMinimans folks have been kind enough to give us 50% of all sales tonight until 11 p.m. So if you guys leave here and you're like, man, I need a snack or a beer or something, head over there and we will get some of that money for our PTA.
Wonderful.
That's
All
what I
right.
got.
McMinimans.
And Jessica has something
Until
to say
11.
about the mural.
Jessica, come on down.
I just wanted everyone to know that the Charleston Avenue is becoming a greenway and through PBOT. And PBOT, yes, I'm very excited about that. PBOT is giving us $7,500 to $10,000 to do a mural. And I just wanted to pass this around for the design that the kids and art teacher came up with.
Great. And is there a place online at all that like the folks on Zoom could see it, or if they could, any way for them to access?
No. I could send it to you though.
Okay.
And you could post it on your website.
Sure. Yeah. Send it our way. Thank you.
Cool.
Yes, we have one hand raised on Zoom. Oh, 1 second. One final update on where the mural exactly is going on Charleston.
So it's on the map, but it's going to be between Lombard and Central. It's very long. And then there'll be a little bit on Leonard.
So all along the side of James John, basically out here? Is
Yeah,
that
in the
correct?
middle. Yeah. In the middle of the road, in between the bumps.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Yes, Tom, go ahead.
Sure. For St. John's Food Share, thank you. If anybody's got anything, we're always receiving food, and it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday and Fridays from 10 to 4, and Wednesdays 10 to 2. And so we're always doing that, and we're always receiving funding. And University Park Neighborhood Association has put in $500. Would love to see the neighborhood associations all throw at least some money into it, because that's what the need is for operating funds. That's it. Also, there's a June 5th District 2 candidates mixer at the Kenton Firehouse. I put that in the chat.
Thanks, Tom. So, and that's a city council candidates mixer.
Yes, and it could be county candidate District 2 candidates too, if there's
Okay.
no one who gets 50% plus one.
All right. It's a deal. June 5th at 7 p.m. at the Kenton Firehouse, a candidate mixer. And then we have one more from the St. John's Review.
Yes, hi, thank you. I just, as a resource, I'm here to help us all get where we need to be with getting our bridges fixed. So I've written down some of the questions and commentary, and we'll be publishing an article about this. And I'm also going to be reaching out to constituents. There's several people that I've already reached out to that are eager to share their perspectives with you, like representatives, people who are running for current positions. So if anyone wants to send me a list of people they'd like me to contact, or send me questions, really anything at all that you think would be helpful for getting this done, to activating our community, that's what the paper's here for.
And so would email be the best way to send to you?
Yes, content at stjohnsreview.com. And there's no period between Saint and John's.
Right.
And you can always, if it's texting or is more convenient for people, I don't know if people have their pens out, but 971-303-9464. And then RJ or anyone else, feel free to send me an email, and I could go back and forth with you on that as well.
Great, thank you. And if you could just drop that information in the chat for the people on Zoom, and
Absolutely.
That sounds great. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And now we'll have a few minutes for anybody. If there's any community questions, comments, or concerns, we have our community corner where any neighbor can come on up to the mic or raise your hand on Zoom. We'll give you 90 seconds to raise anything to the group here.
My name is Jennifer Schloming, and as some of you know, I've been working with the Frog Ferry Project for the last couple of years. Given tonight's presentation, the idea of a ferry as a possibility for some kind of transit in the worst situation seems like a no-brainer. So this board has been wonderfully supportive. Know that the letter of interest is going in May 17 and includes, as part of that application, the little tiny electric vehicle that's currently in use in Vancouver is part of C-Trans, totally electric, that would be between the dock and the plaza. So that the boosters would have access to folks getting off the ferry, getting up to the plaza, shopping in St. John's. St. John's folks could move around for the smaller trips that the buses can't do. So it's all kind of in play. I think if we keep active in this as part of that other horrifying bridge piece, and I am so on it with you guys, Vera and Neil, as mayors when they were in, were very active. We don't have that going on, so as a neighborhood, we got to just stand up and say, are you kidding? And then make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Anybody on Zoom with a? Okay. And nobody else? So, okay, we will move on then to our updates from the board. Some other items going on and important to inform you about. A few from me very quickly, and then we'll move on to Patrick. Updates have been few and far between when it comes to the bottle drop. The one I was able to obtain from the commissioner's office is that they are essentially, they're still looking for a different location, and every location that they have looked at to a different location to put it has not been suitable, has not fit the criteria, has not been the right place to for BottleDrop to put it. So we're basically still in limbo of them, the permit's not moving forward. It's sitting in the governmental agency, and they're trying to find a different location for it, and they're struggling to. And the city is working and with them to find an alternate location. And so if you know of one, send it their way, because they don't have anything right now. So that is the latest on that front. It's a small update, but it's the most I could obtain. The library is going to be closed for construction and remodeling. I recently spoke with the deputy director at Multnomah County Library about its closure and what their plans are for supporting the neighborhood when it is closed. And right now, they do not have plans to open a temporary library. They mostly out of staffing concerns. Their plan is a lot of outreach and being in the neighborhood and supporting the schools, and perhaps pop-up libraries of the sorts at certain times and in certain locations throughout, or having drop-off locations at local businesses or things like that. What was proposed and what I'm hoping to do is have June's meeting be dedicated to this. There's a person leading the engagement for them that I was told I would be introduced to, and I invited them to this meeting in June to discuss the library's closure and their plans for the neighborhood, and that provide us an opportunity to provide feedback to them directly as a neighborhood of what we need and expect for when it is closed. On that call, I learned that it is closing earlier than they originally said. So they said late fall, early winter. I was told now it's late summer that it will close for renovation. So that timeline is apparently moving up. And if I remember correctly, is roughly an 18-month timeline. So June's meeting, if this is an issue that you or someone you know care about, make sure you or them or both are here. And we'll make sure that we'll speak with the library learn more about their exact plans and be able to feedback on them and have our voices heard on that front. So that is the update there. And then one final one, it gets a little bit into the weeds, but I think it's important to think about and to talk about when it comes to neighborhood associations and St. John's as a whole and our place in the city. Traditionally, we've laddered up into an organization of North Portland neighborhood associations, 11 or 12 of us as one office that are supposed to share resources and get us access to grant money and connect us to the city directly. That is now changing to be by city council district. So instead of going up into one North Portland umbrella organization with 11 or 12 neighborhoods, we're going to be in one District 2 coalition office with 28 neighborhoods. So a lot more neighborhoods under one umbrella. And on top of that, it really brings to light an issue with the neighborhood association system. And that is, it's a Senate. And we are California and New York in the Senate. We are a neighborhood of 13,000 people. There's neighborhoods in this organization that have 600, 700, 800 people. And we have access to the same level of grant funding, like capped at a certain dollar amount. So we're expected to communicate to 13,000 people with up to $600, and then a neighborhood with 700 or 800 people can have up to $600 to communicate to their 700 or 800 people. I think it's important to share because I think it's another topic for this neighborhood to care about, and it gets to the root of why maybe we feel a little bit ignored, left behind, not prioritized by the city. And I think it's because our voice gets in part diluted through this sort of senatorial system. So that is happening, that is ongoing. It's kind of what we live within, but maybe we can advocate for some changes in that system, like larger neighborhoods having a higher cap on grant funding than the smaller neighborhoods, things like that. So there might be a place for advocacy where we ask for your help to be involved on that front as well, to help make that system more equitable, because it is, frankly, the poorer and more diverse neighborhoods that they made larger to pack people into them and have less of a voice on purpose. So we need to do our best to try to change this inequitable system, because neighborhood associations are valuable. This is a valuable forum, but the reason it doesn't feel so equal is because at that overarching level, it's not. And we are expected to have the same voice and same funding as neighborhoods that are a tenth of our size. So I'll get off my soapbox, and I will move it on to Patrick for any updates from the Vice Chair.
Thanks, RJ. Yeah, a few things from me. So as you know, the folks that know, we've been applying for some election education grants. So we were able to get that in. I got an email correspondence. They're reviewing our application. So what that grant would be covering is for some additional outreach and education as far as ranked choice voting, single transferable vote, multi-member districts coming up this fall in November. So more to come there when we get through, but that application is in, and we're being hopeful that we will get access to that grant. And speaking of which, for those, just a reminder, we are in a primary election right now. For those that are eligible to vote, you would have gotten your ballots. May 21st is the last day that you can drop them off. Our drop box is right here at the library. So with the new news for the library as well, that will be a question that I have, is where or does that impact the drop box for the November election, which will be a large one during that construction. So I'm on it. We'll definitely be asking them. A few more pieces. TAS update. So for those not aware, the temporary assisted shelter site over off of North Portland Road here, which would be housing up to 150 RVs. We've been working through with DEQ and BES on their remediation of the contaminated ground. And sorry, when I say we, as SJNA, we are not, but that is happening in the background. There was a meeting that maybe some of you were on a couple weeks ago, but basically the findings within within BES and DEQ. They have a remediation plan for that, essentially capping and containing the soil contaminants around the area that will be developed. So there were many studies that were done from that standpoint. So from what we're hearing is that is moving forward according to plan. There are minimal additional steps kind of involved. They'll work through that remediation process that has been agreed upon between the two entities, being the city and DEQ and BES. And the latest from the mayor's office, Hank Smith, is they're hopeful and staying hopeful that they might be able to start admitting people into that location like middle to late summer. So that's the latest we know on that. We'll definitely keep you posted. The last thing there is the Good Neighbor Agreement, which I know we've heard from a few of you folks on. So I think the first step from the city's standpoint was get the remediation and plan in place to be able to actually open the site, and then look at creating a Good Neighbor Agreement committee that can start working through some of those avenues. So just a reminder as well, we as a board, we are pro Good Neighbor Agreement, but we want that to be inclusive of the community. So members of, like you, members of business organizations, school boards, neighbors as well. So we'll be able to include more of that information in the newsletter as that comes up, as we get more information there. And then lastly, just filling in for our friend Ryan here on safety and livability. He had a couple updates for us. So there are going to be increased police patrol patrolling the St. John's neighborhood. So that is vehicle traffic and is evidently already in place. So if you're seeing any more police activity or even vehicles driving around, that's one of the reasons. And then also the Portland Police are looking at piloting a walking patrol at least once a week for a limited amount of hours during the daytime in the business district core. So as we learn more, we'll definitely keep you posted, but those are some of the talking points that are coming up from that standpoint. Cool. That's all I have.
Thanks, Patrick. We'll move on here to Bernadine and the treasurer's report. We'll have Bernadine come on over and share my screen.
Okay, the general checking account is from April 7th to May 12th. Our beginning balance was $7,324.04. We've had income from the sale of the St. John's Neighborhood Association hats on Saturday through St. John's Bazaar for $150. That is cash that came in for 5 hats. The rest of the hats, the additional 18, were sold via Square, and those have not started to come in through this time period. They should be in probably tomorrow or Wednesday and stuff. We also had donations while we were at the bazaar Saturday of $17. So our income for this time period is $167. Then we had expenses. We wrote a check in support of the St. John's Parade Committee April 13th for $250. We had a Zoom expense of $15.99. We had Umbrella Inc., who produced the hats and the embroidery of the bridge on the hats for $399.90. And then we had MailChimp expenses that deals with our email and stuff of $38.25 for total expenses of $704.14. Our balance as of yesterday was $6,786.90. Restricted is $3,085.60. That's what's left from our Metro grant that we received that covers the costs of us doing dumpster days, cleanups. That's what is covering those expenses. And then we still have restricted $65.65 for Day of the Child check that was written to George Middle School. And I met with the principal this morning, and I'm pretty sure that's going to get taken care of quickly. We have unrestricted funds of $3,635.65. Next is our art fund. For the same date range, we had a beginning balance of $100.04. This is a restricted account. And as of yesterday, our ending balance was $100.04. Our next account is our BottleDrop account. For the same date range, we started out with $458.50. We had income of bags that people have dropped off of $14.30. And then from our booth at the bazaar on Saturday, we got 90 cents from cans and bottles. So
Big bucks.
total income, $15.20. Expenses, we bought 100 bags of the BottleDrop bags, the blue ones, for $20. That was our total expenses, and our balance is $453.70. And I do have BottleDrop bags if anybody needs any. Are there any questions? Yes?
Are we considering donating to the St. John's Food Share?
Are we what?
Considering donating to the St. John's Food Share.
That has not ever been brought up. That can be brought up and we can discuss it at the board meeting. It would have to then be approved there that we consider it and then go before the June general membership, because that is not a line item in our approved budget. And we can consider it and add it to our next fiscal year, which starts July 1st for that budget.
Any others?
Anybody else?
Anybody on Zoom?
Anybody up on the line?
Online, it was the same question. UPN, it's a statement. UPNA will match dollar for dollar any donations SJNA makes to the food share. All right. University Park Neighborhood Association, Tom Karwaki.
One more question.
So my other question is, I didn't know about this BottleDrop thing that would go towards the neighborhood association, so where would I drop it off? What's it like?
The closest place to drop a blue bag off is at Safeways. If you're looking at Safeway, the BottleDrop bag door is on the right-hand side, and it should read the code that's on the tag on the bag that is ours, and it should unlock the door. You put the bag in, then it gets counted and credited to us. Okay, I don't hear any more questions. Yeah, and stuff, but I wanted to get this done. Okay, now, because we do have an approved budget, and due to circumstances that most of you know, that when we had the meeting here and at another location and so many people on Zoom when we were dealing with the BottleDrop situation coming to the old Dollar Tree and stuff, we needed that night to increase our Zoom because we only had 100 allowed and we had to go to the 300 plus to increase that. That increased our Zoom and stuff. So with increased expenses for the rest of this month and June, the last 2 months of our fiscal year, we are going to be short. So I am recommending and putting out that from our $700 amount approved budget, that we increase it to 725. And I'm going extra because at the moment, we're only $4.61 short of getting us through. But just in case something else pops up through our web services and stuff, then we would need to be able to cover that. So I'm making the motion that we increase that line item of web services in the approved budget from 700 to 725.
Is there a second for that? There's a second motion.
Okay, are there any questions?
Great. So we'll do it as we did with the minutes. If there's any objection, raise your hand either in the room or if you object to that, raise your hand on Zoom. If you object in the room, raise your hand. We will otherwise pass it unanimously. If there's an objection, we'll take a vote. That is unanimous. Thank you, Bernadine. Thank you. Thanks for bearing with us, folks. I know we're over time here. The sun still being kind of out is deceptive and fooling, but we're almost there. Just tell Paul that to keep it quick. So yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Should I look at this camera here?
Yeah.
Okay, so just a quick report on Safer Together. There are now 10 people signed up for block parties. This is pretty far ahead of where we were last year. So thank you very much. And if you want to host a block party, go to the website, pick up one of those flyers there. You all know that. I want to thank Perrin Faulkner, who's not, is she here? Perrin, are you? Oh, there you are. I'm sorry, I didn't even see you. Who's made a map, just a Google map. So we now, with everybody's permission, so it's now up on the website. Go to the Safer Together page, and you can see where the parties are scheduled. And then we started adding them to the calendars also. And Judy and Alex Williams, you are the first date to be posted on the calendar because I just did it, and so that's great. And so now there could be more visibility for the parties. If you want to have a party and you want it to be secret, that's okay too. We won't post it. And then the other thing, just so you know, I got a communication from Overlook Neighborhood Association who wanted to find out how to do block parties in it. So we're talking to them. I don't know if you introduced us or something, but anyway, that's great. So the idea might be spreading.
Thank you, Paul.
So, thank you.
There's a question here.
Oh, okay. I love questions.
Sorry, earlier when I was talking about the mural, I also meant to mention that we are having block parties for painting it. So if anyone would like to be involved in creating this beautiful work of art, that flyer on the table has the dates of June 9th and 16th that we'll be actually painting. So you can get out and get a brush. So.
Thank you, everybody. I will not be attending because I would ruin the mural. Absolutely ruin it. Great. So we have land use updates, some minor and quick ones that have come in to the mailbox. We received 3 notices throughout the neighborhood of neighbors taking their plot of land and splitting it in 2. So if you would like to see those locations, we have the notices up here. But all 3 of them are pretty straightforward. There's a house and it's like a double lot and they're gonna split it and they're gonna be able to put a second building on that second lot and have the original structure on the first lot. So no major developments in the works, it seems, from these notices that came in on the land use front. Anything on your mind on that front? Okay. Juan, if you're on Zoom, do you have any? He had to drop. Okay. And how about Kim? No? No? Hey, folks, you beat out a few board members for staying this long, so we appreciate you. I believe Duncan, come on down. This is the Hat Man himself.
All right, yeah, so Bernadine kind of stole the thunder, but we did a fundraiser at the St. John's Bazaar. We were selling hats. which had a logo of the bridge. We bought 23 of them. That was that line item in the budget for just under $400. We were selling each hat at $30, and we sold them all. So we're actually going to we generated revenue. So that's pretty cool. And the intent really behind it is, some of you tonight asked, hey, can we contribute money to the food share? Or, we already give money to the bazaar, the parade, we do those sponsorships. So really, my goal was to have some sort of recurring source of revenue to be able to give that money out in an unrestricted sense. Again, we don't know where it's going to go. We have a lot of work to do at this upcoming retreat, but just that's the idea. Last plug I'll say is we put in one order, we can put in more orders. So if you're interested in purchasing a hat, send an email to RJ and info at St. John's. And then we can, if we get a large enough group together, put another order in, and you'll be fundraising for our neighborhood association. That's all I got. Thanks.
Yes, the email there is info@stjohnspdx.org. And yeah, if we get enough people that want one, we can do another run of those. Jesse, do you have anything?
No updates.
No updates from Jesse. Great. I think that is everything from the board. That is everything on the agenda. It is 8:47 p.m. And so we're going to go ahead and close the May general meeting for the St. John's Neighborhood Association. Thanks everybody for being here. We'll be around here afterwards, so if you have anything further, come talk to us. And also get in touch if you want to join our board. We would love to have you and to continue to increase our impact on the neighborhood with you. So thanks for being here, everybody.